be saying like fun and belly like that. Like I don't know nobody.
Time I come back, 10 bodies, that's Maxx.
Right, I wish Maxx was right here. I swear to God, I'm my dead son. I wish Maxx was right here. I would, hell no, I ain't some if you thought I thought you, what's up?
Damn, Maxx so rich. You have bodies you can pop, and you gon' tell you must be cheap.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Y'all know my slogan. I don't know it all, but I know what I've been through. Now, before we get into this video, make sure you check us out on Patreon at www.patreon.com/Hookah Anonymous _. You guys been telling us to create one for the longest, so we recently created a community where we will upload videos that we can't share on YouTube due to their guidelines. We'll also be dropping the latest to there first, behind the scenes information that you wouldn't find anywhere else on our socials. So make sure you become a member, and after you do that, head over to our official Instagram page at Hookah Anonymous _ and follow us there. Now without further ado, let's get into what you guys came here to see. Now, Chicago has already been on fire, and even though the summer is ending, it still seems like it's begun in the midst of everything happening in Chicago. We've seen recently NLMB members going back and forth with Philly rapper OT7 Kwani, where threats were made, and it seemed like although Kwani once had a relationship with NoLimit's own G Herbo, it's now out the window due to everything that's transpired within the past few days. For y'all that don't know, NoLimit members called out Kwani for contacting him and stating that he was also copping a plea over a situation that transpired behind the scenes involving a co-owner from the clothing brand Hellstar. As Kwani would try to defuse the situation by calling some of the NoLimit affiliates that he know, it only made matters worse, and he would end up getting into whatever problem that the members had initially with the Hellstar co-owner. They all would go back and forth with each other on social media, and it even went as far as one of Kwani's affiliates by the name of ller posting a flyer stating that G Herbo has a performance coming up in Philly in September on the 29th. He would then tag NoLimit affiliate Big Op and told him to stop playing, pretty much letting it be known that they're doing all that trolling, but they have to come to Philly, and that's their stomping ground. Which I'm sure it'll be the same if Kwani had to go to Chicago. It's one of those things where he didn't have to say much, but if y'all read between the lines, y'all know exactly what he was insinuating. Like I told y'all before, once the threats start flying, it's almost no coming back from that. Pride and ego gets involved, and with social media in the mix, most of these guys are peer pressured into following through with their threats, because now the whole world watched you say you was going to do something and you didn't. It's a recipe for disaster. So these type of social media games only lead down the path of destruction. However, NoLimit got a bigger issue to worry about. A Chicago native by the name of Rell was recently released from prison after serving a little bit of time behind bars for unaliving a prime member of NLMB that goes by the name of Mad Maxx. Mad Maxx is usually referencing a bunch of songs by NLMB members, most notably G Herbo, Little Bibby, and others. He was one of the original members who also inflicted a lot of pain on a lot of their ops when he was alive. Although he wasn't no saint, Mad Maxx's story is pretty interesting within itself, and being that Rell served such short time for his death, questions whether he'll be able to survive on the streets of Chicago after taking one of NLMB's most valuable members. We're going to get into all that, but before we do, make sure you hit that thumbs up button so we can get this video into the algorithm, and if you're not subscribed to the platform already, make sure you do so now. Let's get into it. Around 3 o'clock in the afternoon on August 3rd, 2018, Christopher Jackson, aka C Money, aka Mad Maxx, was shot in the 7600 block of South Kingston Avenue. Some say that Maxx was moving into his mom's house, as it was reported that he was moving items from a vehicle into the home nearby. After the shooting occurred, officers were flagged down by a young kid near 75th and Exchange and told them that a black man with black and brown dreads was shooting at someone else and ran on foot towards 75th and South Exchange. That's when police would identify a man that matched the exact description given by the young kid, and they would learn that the man's name was Terrell Webb, aka Rell. Things got worse for Rell because right after he was caught and pat down, officers would find a handgun in the right pocket, and at that time he was taken into custody for possessing a weapon. The juvenile was then brought to the scene and identified Rell as the man he seen running, confirming that he was in fact the suspect. Although Rell got arrested, he was released 2 days later after the case was given CI status, which is short for continued investigation, on August 5th. The investigation was now on, and here's why people start calling Mad Maxx an informant due to the statements made in his report. It said that on August 8, 2018, Maxx was presented with a photo lineup to identify a possible suspect, and when Rell's picture came up, reports said that Maxx would say, quote, "He shot me, that's Terrell." Fast forward to August 10, 2018, detectives will go back to the University of Chicago Hospital, where Mad Maxx was located, to interview Christopher Jackson further and get a story on what actually happened the day he was shot. Mad Maxx would tell them that around 3 p.m., he was moving some of his things when he seen a man and a woman at the gate to the apartment's courtyard. He stated that Rell was wearing a hooded sweatshirt with his hood on. Maxx stated that he tried to run into the building to get away, but Terrell shot him before he could run. He stated that after being shot, he fell to the floor, and the last thing he was able to remember was him being in the hospital. An arrest warrant was put out for Rell, and he was arrested shortly after on August 22nd, 2018 in Charles City, Iowa on an attempted M warrant. With Rell being in Iowa, more than likely, he had no plans on returning to court and was most likely trying to go on the run by getting out of Chicago. But one thing about the law, when they really want you, there's almost nowhere you can run to unless you make it into another country somewhere where their extradition laws aren't in agreement with the United States. Now things would get even worse for Rell because the GSR kit that was done on him after the incident happened came back positive while he was in police custody, further proving that the weapon he had was in fact the same weapon used to shoot Mad Maxx. Ironically, the same day the gunshot residue kit came back positive for Rell on September 3rd, 2018, happens to be the same day that Mad Maxx ended up passing away after succumbing to his injuries. Maxx lived fighting for a whole exact month while being heavily sedated, in and out of consciousness sometimes, and being interviewed by detectives for a story on what happened the day he was shot. Things will start looking bad for Rell because his attempted M charge have now turned into a first-degree M charge, on top of being pointed out by the victim and a witness, on top of being caught just minutes from the crime scene with the same weapon used in the commission of the crime. So you would think that there's no way possible Rell would ever be able to see the light of day again, because there's no way he'll be able to shake all the odds against him. However, Rell will end up catching a break. One thing about the law, a small technicality can turn the whole case upside down, and it could go in anyone's favor whether you're actually guilty or not. In this case, although the GSR kit came back positive for Rell, and he was pointed out by a witness and by the victim Mad Maxx, it would later be proved that Maxx and Rell were actually engaged in a shootout. Maxx was with a woman at the time of the shooting, and she confessed that when they were standing with each other, Maxx told her, quote, "That's Rell." Shortly after that, a shootout followed, so I'm assuming that maybe police feels that Maxx was the one that spotted Rell first and fired the first shot. Whether he really did or not, it'll pretty much become Rell's word against Maxx's, and if Maxx ain't here to speak on his behalf, it's unanimous at this point. Also, when police arrived to the scene where Maxx was shot, they found shell casings from a 9mm handgun and a 4.5. Now the 9mm was found on Rell when he was detained and taken into custody. However, police were never able to retrieve the 4.5 in which there were shell cases from. 9 times out of 10 after the shooting, whoever Maxx was with would take the weapon and dispose of it, so Maxx wouldn't face any legal trouble if he survived.
Oh, they snatched that. They snatched it right away. Yeah, if he had a gun, someone took it off. There's a shell case. There's a bullet wound. There's it.
The different shell casings would indicate to law enforcement that there was in fact a shootout that transpired, and not just a situation where Rell targeted Maxx. So after investigations would in fact prove that it was a shootout that took place, Rell's charge would go from first-degree M down to manslaughter. He took the manslaughter and avoided going to trial where he could possibly blow and serve way more time. After CPD feeling that it wasn't enough evidence and figuring that it was in fact a shootout and not a targeted incident, Rell was given just 10 years. He was expected to be released in 2025 and serve the rest of his time on parole. However, with good time, all of it shaves time off your sentence and you end up only having to do a fraction of your time, and in his case, he only had to serve 4 years, with the rest being on parole. That being said, Rell was recently released and wasted no time celebrating.
Shit long, with the killer, smoke the killer.
Now, plenty of rumors floating around. Some people even say that it wasn't even Rell that actually did it because he was with someone else. However the story goes, you could basically say he or whoever beat a body charge, being that he only had to serve a few years for such a serious charge. Now, I personally think CPD hated Maxx because they knew or supposedly knew of him committing other bodies, but didn't have enough evidence to pin him to anything. So when he would be shot, realistically, they probably didn't even care whether he would pass away or not, because to them, it was probably like a sigh of relief, unfortunately. And I know it sounds crazy, but that's really how the streets go when it comes to law enforcement. When you're someone that's known to law enforcement and something happens to you, they're not that invested into solving anything because they feel you cause a lot of destruction yourself. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing here. I don't wish jail or death on anybody, but there's no way a man can take someone's life and only receive 4 years unless it's out of self-defense and it's absolutely proven. Just think, they say it wasn't enough evidence, but this man was in someone else's neighborhood, he was pointed out by a witness, he got caught with the firearm, made Instagram story posts and even a video and song trolling Mad Maxx and dry snitching on himself. Then he was pointed out by the victim himself, and I hear there's a possible surveillance video surfacing out there. So how much evidence do you really need? Unless you really don't care. Now, I think at this point it's pretty evident that they don't care whether they take each other's lives out there, and in fact it's almost like they're encouraging it. This took place in 2018. You don't think this is still fresh in these guys' mind that are affiliated with Mad Maxx? You don't think this is going to cause a lot of shootings or attempts on this man's life? He was one of their main guys. So you only know what's going to follow after this. And this is one of those situations where he's more safe in there than out here. And I'm more than sure they're not allowing him to leave Chicago, so that's going to be even worse. Now, I always felt weird about Maxx passing away in the hospital because something never sat right with me about it. And knowing how corrupt hospitals could be, along with law enforcement, especially when they don't like you, but maybe I'm the one that think it's a mighty coincidence that Maxx was able to live the whole time when they needed information, but as soon as they got everything they needed to prosecute Rell, Maxx is basically no longer needed and suddenly he passes away. Now, of course, I know they said he was already in and out of consciousness, he was on drugs and etc. But it's just a mighty coincidence that he was able to speak whenever they needed him to after the first day. And I just always found it strange how the same exact day the GSR kit came back positive for Rell is the same exact day Mad Maxx ends up passing away. Right? Like I said, I could just be overthinking it. It's just a coincidence. Let's say that. Now, another thing I always found weird in Maxx's passing is when they said he died after giving a confession to the police or while he was taking his last breaths, he passed away. One thing I'm gonna tell y'all is this: be careful of them hospitals and be careful of the police. I think by now we should have learned that everything isn't always what we're told or even what we see, being that AI is a thing. And I say that because it's already been proven countless of times that CPD along with these hospitals are crooked. And who knows, Mad Maxx was very much a problem for them and they didn't like him. And I wouldn't put it past them if they purposely made sure he didn't leave that hospital, as crazy as it sounds. Don't act like y'all never heard of the Martin Luther King story, where it's believed that he didn't die from the gunshot wound that he actually suffered. He actually died because he was suffocated with the pillow in the hospital, allegedly. So please don't act like these weird events don't take place. Just look at what happened to FBG Duck and how carelessly they treated him while he was fighting for his life. Who knows what happened when they actually got to that hospital? Then look at what Mayor Lightfoot had to say about him shortly after he was unalive. All I'm saying is we can't believe everything them people say all the time, especially when it can't be proven, because history has taught us over and over that them people have fooled us a bunch of times or fabricated a lot of stories. Maybe they waited until Mad Maxx gave up enough information and then, either way, 4 years for a body is crazy. You got guys committing white collar crimes getting more time than that. And when you think about it, here's what don't make sense. He was caught with the weapon that fired the fatal shots 5 minutes away from the crime scene, and the victim told them what happened. So you mean to say that his statement wasn't good enough to identify the person, but was good enough to properly convict them? Right? But the point of me saying all this is it's a lot of weird stuff going on, whether it's within them hospitals or law enforcement. My best advice to avoid it all is to try and just stay away from both the best way you can. Avoid putting the fate of your life in these people's hands. Simple. Because you never know, and you definitely don't want to find out. Now, to my knowledge, Maxx leaves behind a daughter, and that's the only child I know he has as of right now. I've been meaning to do this video for a few days now because I purposely feel that CPD know there's no good that's going to come out of releasing this man. And I think at this point, they're purposely doing it. But y'all tell me what y'all think. Rest in peace to Mad Maxx. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell so you're notified every time we drop new content. And remember, as long as you keep on watching, I'ma keep on dropping. I'm out.